How many of you really want just an ordinary life? You know, a few would say yes, please. Those are ones that are going through probably extraordinary times at the moment. But the vast majority of us, when you think about going shopping or you think about your next car or your next purchase of phone or whatever it may be, you don't think, oh, do you know what, I'll go for the most ordinary thing out there. You go into a wedding and for a guy's, obviously it's a good suit, a nice pair of shoes or something, that'll look a bit flashy, And so you go into the shop and you think, I'm going to actually no, I'll just go for the most ordinary thing there because I don't really want to wear anything nice to a wedding. And the ladies, of course, you walk in and you're looking at a pair of shoes or a dress and you're thinking as you go in with your girlfriend, you're thinking, I'm going to find the most ordinary dress here. I don't want anything too flashy or anything else. None of us think like that, do we? We all want something extraordinary. We all want something wonderful. We always want something dynamic. And the real question is, how do we find that extraordinary thing in life? I mean, for kids, it's rather interesting. You can give them pretty much anything when they're really young and they find something extraordinary about it. I know this Christmas, some of you will have kids that are just getting to that age where they can start to enjoy Christmas, or at least you'll be able to remember it, or know one that has. And the fascinating thing is when you buy them a present, half the time they're far more interested in the wrapping and the box than they are in what's inside it. It's almost like the gift itself is just the fun part of it. And they've got an appreciation of the giver sometimes. Then they get slightly older and then they're just concerned with what the gift is and how much is it worth and does it compare with what my friend has. And then as we age, we get to the same stuff, don't we? We're always thinking about how we compare with other stuff, and the wonder seems to be lost out of it. But it's when we connect back with it, I guess for me, connecting with some of this stuff is now that I'm missing my dad. And it's kind of weird when I'm in the day-to-day stuff, being able to go out for a coffee with my dad was something I just took for granted. It was the everyday stuff. But now what I'd give to go out for a coffee with Dad. And it's got this wonder element attached to it. And it's reconnecting with the significance of a moment where it becomes about the person and not about the activity anymore, or about the gift. And so for Christmas, as parents, your joy is not what you get, to be honest. Your joy is in seeing the faces of the people around you and the kids and everything else. And so wonder takes on a whole new meaning. And the extraordinary can be found in the most ordinary places. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about what I was going to teach on. And I thought, I'll teach on wonder, because it's kind of fun. And I've done it a little bit before, but I thought I'd do it slightly differently. And then this morning, Keith preached on kind of creation and all of these bits and pieces. And I thought, right, tick those off the list of things I can't mention tonight then. And I'm left with the wonder of the cross, which I actually thought is quite a nice thing to talk on, really, being like I'm in a church. And so I thought I'd speak on the wonder of the cross. But before I get to it, I thought I'd kind of bring in a story a little bit earlier on. So if you turn to Matthew 16, I'm going to go from verse 13. Flipping of pages. Now when Jesus came to the district of Caesarea Philippi, he was asking his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? So, who do people say I am? It's kind of like Gallup poll, let's just take a survey. Who do people say I am? What about you? What about you? And I could ask this question of you, couldn't I? Who do people say you are? Oh my goodness. Gosh, let's let the critics out. But he's saying, who do people say I am? And the disciples said to him, well, some say you're John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, but others still say Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say I am? So that's a jolly good question, really, isn't it? Who do you say Jesus is? Now, many of us relate to Jesus in different ways. Some of you will relate to Jesus in, he's my savior. Some of you would relate to Jesus and say, he's my teacher or my guide. Some of you would say, he's God. Or some of you would say, creator. Some of you would say, he's more like a husband. Or he's more like a father to me. And so we have different ideas, and I wrote a few down. And some of you would say he would be the king, or he'd be the Lord. Some of you would say from this morning, he's the exact representation of God. Okay, he would be my example of who God is. Other of you would say, he's my love. He is what love is to me. He's the only example I have in my world of knowing what true love really is. And it's fascinating because Simon turns around and says, "You are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God." And Jesus is a bit taken aback. He said, "Who revealed this to you? Nobody but God could reveal this to you." But it was interesting that he then says, "I say to you, Peter, that upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overpower it." And you think, how exciting is that? Those that confess Christ, upon that rock, I will build my church. And the Catholics take this to mean that upon Peter, the church is built. And so they claim the whole kind of hierarchy coming down. They're all representations of Peter. And the true church is kind of built on that rock. So we get this exciting moment. This idea that the Christ has come. Now, you could imagine being a bit of a fly on the wall in the background and not knowing who the Christ is, all this speculation flying around about who's the latest and is he really who he is. And we get inference from that a little bit earlier in that verse. When we say, is he John the Baptist? Is he Elijah? Is he Jeremiah? And these people have turned around and said, he's the Christ. He's the Lord. He's the Creator. He's the Son of God. He is the solution to all the world's problems. And there are an awful lot out there at the moment, and it would be nice to have a solution to all the world's problems right now. And so he is this person, and we'd be thinking, wow, fly on the wall. Is he really the Son of God? Is he really the one that's going to save us all? Is he really the one that's going to overthrow the oppression that we feel? Is he really the one? Are we going to be saved? And it's kind of like an anticipated moment. People have been looking forward to this for a very long time. People have had their fathers say, oh, maybe he'll be born in my generation, and he wasn't. They've had their great-great-grandfathers say, I was hoping he would come and it wasn't in my generation. Maybe it will be in yours. And so they were expecting this. It's a bit like anticipating Christmas. These kids are sitting there going, when's the next day? And then the advent calendars come out, and then they finally get to open the first one. And these days they make chocolates. They didn't have it in my day. I just had a picture, And I thought it was a bit duff when I got a bit older, and I'm still opening pictures, and then I'm seeing my mates having chocolates. But there we go. We didn't have much back in those days. But please don't buy me an advent calendar. It's all right. I don't use them anymore. I give them to my kids. And they had 2 last year, so they've already had too many. Probably won't have one this year. We'll boycott them or something. I'm joking. Joking. Gosh. Well, at least you're awake. But think for a moment. I wonder how long God anticipated this moment when Jesus actually came. I mean, if you look back in the history, and I've done this a little bit before, you see this theme of the presence of God just giving this impression that he's going to come. He's going to come. He's going to come this way. He's going to come in this place. He's going to come through this time of birth. He's going to come through. And all the prophecies and waiting and anticipating this moment when finally the angels burst through and announced to the lowest of the lowest of the low, the shepherds at the time, announced to them, he is born. He's here. He's with us. Emmanuel, God with us, has finally arrived on the scene. And it's this kind of Christmas has arrived. And the kids are jumping up and down and getting all excited and running around and opening the presents and everything else. And it's the same kind of expectation that people have, but kind of far more so when we look at people expecting the Christ to come, the answer to all of our problems. Europe are currently struggling at the moment. How are we going to solve the financial problems that we have? And it would be the equivalent of just tomorrow, something occurs and it solves it all in a moment. And all of us go, business is going to be safe, my job's going to be all right, my future's going to be okay, my kids are going to be okay, we're going to be able to do this, we're going to be able to solve this and everything else. Wow. And this is the kind of level of impact this is having. But they don't really know who it is. And they're trying to figure it out. And Peter suddenly turns around and says, you're the Son of the living God. You're him. And maybe it's as much a shock to Peter as it was to Jesus at the time. But Jesus was the Son of the living God. Jesus was the gift that was to come. Jesus was the anointed one. Jesus is the Christ. But what's fascinating is that Jesus turns around to them and he says in verse 20, he says, don't tell anybody. It's kind of like, time's not yet. Don't tell anybody. And then he goes on to tell them why. He said, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised on the 3rd day. Peter took him aside and rebuked him. Yeah, after just confessing who he is, it's a fascinating bit of boldness. Took him aside and rebuked him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, This shall never happen to you." And so Peter, after having just been told that he is the rock on which Jesus will build his church, then Jesus says to him, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block for me, for you are not setting your mind on God's interests, but on man's." How has God come to save us?